what does Rubaru stand for? And of course, we had Shri Dushyant Sridhar explain Rubaru is actually coming face to face as what we had in Kurukshetra. But we also had another meaning to the word Rubaru, right? Rubaru was coined. I still remember when Venkat and I were sitting and debating what the topic should be. We actually had coined this as an anagram of two words coming together, which was rural and urban. And this is truly coming together of those two streams that we have. So with that little bit of background and having this topic today on driving blueprint of inclusive education in the Amrit Kal, I want to quickly introduce my panelists. Since we talked about rural, I am actually going to invite the first panelist who started his career with the International Institute of Rural Reconstruction. He actually went on to become the Government Partnership Officer at CARE. He worked with very large institutions including Vedanta and the Jindal Group. He was the head of CSR and sustainability at ACC. He actually was also a trustee of the ACC Trust. He not only runs his enterprise, but he himself is an avid runner. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Pratyush Panda, Senior Director, ESG at LTI Mindtree. Welcome, sir. Please. So we talked about urban, right? Rural, right? So we have another panelist here who actually started her career as an urban planner at the Association of Metro Development Authority. She was formerly the SVP at NASSCOM. As you know, I mean, we are talking about technology here. And we have someone who was the SVP at NASSCOM and the leader at IBM for strategy and new initiatives for the CSR. And now she is the Director for CSR and Sustainability at Ernst & Young EY Global Delivery Services. I stand corrected. Please put your hands together to welcome Ms. Rumi Malik Mitra. Hi, Rumi. Now I go on to invite my third panelist. Now, actually, you get a sense of complex when you read his profile, actually. It's a very long profile. I have to make it short, unfortunately. So here is a person who actually is the Karnataka State Committee head for CSR and community development at ASSOCHAM. He's actually a convention committee member for Global Compact Network of India at the UNGC. He's also a president, AG and district director for the Rotary Club. He's also a visiting faculty at IMT Ghaziabad, also happens to be his alma mater where he was a college secretary. Formerly with IBM and Oracle. Now for the last 12 years he is with Brillio, where presently he is the director and global head for sustainability and ESG. Please welcome Abhishek Ranjan. And with this panel, I am the moderator. My name is Ram Kumar. I am a trustee and sit on the board of eVidyaloka. I also happen to be a management consultant with a firm called Cedar. But for today, I'm actually a true blue eVidyalokan. So let's start this session with, maybe with you, Pratyush. You know, when you read Pratyush's profile, I think there was a line that actually really took my attention here. And that line was, I believe in equity more than equality. And that was a very powerful line. Now, when we're talking about inclusive education here, and the other line that I actually took away was innovation-driven multiplier effect. So I'm going to actually ask you this question. How do you see the next 25 years, which actually reflects these two themes that you actually are very passionate about? And more importantly, how do you see this Amrit Kal unfolding, given this element of technology that you see as to driving multiplier effect?
Thank you so much. Let me start with the later first, Amrit Kal. We all know about our Honorable wonderful Prime Minister. Most of us loved him, but hardly people knows about Amrit Kal in India, to be very precise. And I've yet to find any company, NGOs, except probably eVidyaloka, who very prominently putting Amrit Kal logo in all their preparation. Thank you so much for that. We all know, need to learn from these things. When our Prime Minister decides something and goes into, I think we all need to, 140 crores people need to come out in support without any mistrust. So that's need to take away from the Amrit Kal. Normally Kal in Sanskrit is like small movement, but here Amrit Kal is for 25 years. What he's saying is now or never kind of things. So we are the youngest country. We are based on technology today. Based on our mindsets are now governing based of the corporate across the globe. Probably that's the Amrit Kal he's talking about. Coming back to your first question of equity and equality, how do I describe? Let me take an example of educations. Send two kids to a classroom. One is PWD, limping with one leg. Other one is full present. Both are in class 10th. Both are good in studies. Third one, again, everything is okay, can't hear. Teacher teaches in the same length and breadth to everyone. Can all three secure same mark? Example of equality. Make it equity, what eVidyaloka is doing. Put it on technology based from here to say the Rohit village in Jharkhand, and just interpreter, I know that, what you call that, subtitle, supers come in between. Even if somebody is deaf, can easily read and understood. That's equality. That's what I'm trying to say. Those time has gone, forget about equality. Talk of equity, provide the resource allocation cannot be same for two person of the same design and same shape and size. Resource allocation can go up and down so that outcome or impact has to be same. That's equity probably. And thank you. And to answer your third one, how technology can be multiplier effect. I am working with a couple of incubation centers, including IIT Madras, for last almost a decade now. And I saw that at LTI also, now LTI Mindtree. Again, we're working on those lines. What a small technological device I'm talking about, we're helping IIT Madras to come out with a small box of this size for 5G. If you put it in a panchayat, the entire panchayat 5 km radius will provide best quality of 5G. Forget about 4G. The cost today is 8 lakhs rupees per box. We're trying to get it reduced to 2 to 3 lakhs so that panchayat can afford. Imagine that happens, and the impact of organization, including eVidyaloka, kind of superior quality of services that you can render across east, northeast, Leh, Ladakh, somewhere, some interior pockets. So to achieve that multiplier effect, there is no shortcut, but there is also no, what you call that, typical obsolete way of handling it. There has to breakthrough, and breakthrough can only achieve through technology. If technology is there, we can accept that, there are chances that we'll get multiplier effect. Again, if you look at today's Amrit Kal, that 2-3 things that our Prime Minister is talking about, technology-led education is talking about. Economy where the finance has to be for the kind of corpus for the common mass. And then thus education will get to the superior level where India will become a kind of superpower. That was probably his envisaging in these 25 years.
Thank you. So your underlying statement there is actually where technology is, and I see the technology as a driver is the phrase you were using. I am going to take that question to Rumi, and I'm actually going to be asking you this question particularly. I know you have in your various avatars over the years have actually been focused on driving technology for good and online learning, and you've been obviously an advocate of this, Rumi. See, one of the areas that we always see is, teaching. There are two components to what learning can be, right, or needs to be. We as a country, as if I go back to what Dushan Sridhar was referring to, we actually have engineers, but electrical engineers who don't know how to actually connect a electrical circuit, right? I mean, we don't have electricians, we have electric engineers. We seem to have a shortage of masons, but we have a lot of civil engineers. So we do have a problem of skills, right? I mean, if you look at the country we are imparting knowledge, but imparting skills is going to be equally critical, right? How do you see technology playing a role in the run-up to Amritkal in imparting skills as an area of focus?
Sure. Thank you, Ram. And first, before I begin, I just should thank all the organizers of eVidyaloka for inviting us here. I think this is one of the best immersions that I've had for a very long time, and it is amazing to see the kind of achievement that this team has. And I think the power of volunteers is coming through in a very successful model like eVidyaloka's. And every time I witness anything, I hear a story of eVidyaloka, I feel very proud, I feel very amazed all the time. So congratulations to the whole team. Now, I must say this much in advance, that what you're going to hear from us is going to be so much less eloquent than Mr. Dushwant Sridhar. So let me pull that up first as a disclaimer before we get into answering the questions. But if I have to respond to that point, Ram, that you raised, and I think this is a question in everybody's mind, that we are talking about skills-based learning. Is it different from education? Is it different from knowledge, acquiring knowledge? Where does it stand? Now, my position on this and my understanding or my thinking in this is that skills-based learning actually is taking center stage in the discourse of learning and knowledge and education and so on. It's not necessarily always linked to workforce development, but it is certainly leaning towards there in terms of a conversation. In my view, I think, and there are many points, but I would like to highlight probably 3 trends or 3 factors that definitely influence the adoption and the value creation and possibly the value capture process within the skills-based learning models too. I was very tempted to give you a little bit more about who we are, EYGDS, but I'll keep it to just 2 sentences. As you understand from the name, we are a part of EY Business, and across 10 locations where we are present, we are about 75,000 people currently. Now, why this is important to us also, as an organization that is strongly embedded into responsible business and sustainable development, we also feel that when we talk about building a better working world, we are actually talking about bringing in change and inspire everybody to become change agents. Now, again, why this is significant? Because we think of starting the change from our own people, our own employees, and hence volunteering and skills volunteering is a very significant component of who we are, what we do in corporate responsibility, who we are as business. Now, that introduction is done. Let me come back to Ram's question. The 3 trends, and I don't think this is something that is something you're hearing for the first time. I think this is pretty much within the current discourse and conversation. But the first thing that I see as a trend that's going to probably influence the way that skills-based learning is going to be perceived as we move forward is, the shift to purpose-driven learning. And I say that because, we hear a lot of questions these days around why learn? What is it meant for? What is it supposed to do? What is the return on investment? Scary sentences, right? So we see that a lot of questions being asked around really what are we learning and what is it meant to serve? What's the purpose of it? Now, this definitely is a very significant trend towards moving into a skills-based learning. And I don't really mean that all kind of education needs to move into skills-based learning, because essentially in the formative years in school, you are talking about a bit of knowledge acquisition and so on. But thanks to the NEP, although this trend started much before that, there is a conversation about 21st century skills in school. So there is a shift in thinking that you're talking skills. Maybe you're talking very basic problem-solving skills, but nevertheless, it is beyond scholastic learning to a movement towards what kind of skills are really important at a primary education level, at a mid-education level, at a higher education level. And as you gradually move towards a mid-school or high school, you are talking a bit more advanced 21st century skills, often about core skills that help you become more employable in the future. And as we move upwards, which is higher secondary plus, you are talking about trade skills and particular skills that help you land an employment faster and so on and so forth. Higher education is certainly talking about return on investment, which means are you learning something that is going to give you a sustainable livelihood in the future? So the context of skills-based learning is essentially there, and it is a extremely powerful incentive to really lean towards what would learning help us to do, and can it build necessary skills for us to be in the future. I'm going to talk a little fast now because I think at some point Ram is going to say you're talking too much. So the second point that I come to is the idea of technology, and I should not say more because Ravi sir here has identified technology as an important driver. He was a disclaimer that his team told him to do so, but I strongly believe everybody in this room does believe that technology has an important role to play. Not to mention Mr. Khan's and Mr. Pai's optimism and ambitions around what technology can do for this country. So COVID has actually accelerated a lot of technology adoption in education and learning. And the World Economic Forum has some astounding figures around how many online learners are there. But this is significant because during COVID times, we all tried to see how can we reach our existing beneficiaries, how do we add value, how do we connect to them, and so on. And post-COVID, we tried to see, well, what was great in the physical face-to-face interactions in skills development and education, and what was great in digital, and can we combine it? And then you heard the term called phygital, physical and digital coming together. Now this is a very innovative model that is emerging. So you have gone beyond just saying, look, I have an online learning program. You have said, look, I have innovated in it to create a better learner experience. Not only do technology provide easier access, democratization, diversity of content, you name it, there is a learning program available there somewhere, right? It is also giving you a better experience from a learner's perspective, a better learning outcome perhaps. So technology remains in the center point of skills-based learning, and it is primarily helping us to get better outcomes from any of the skills-based learning that we get into. The third trend that I see is important, and again, it is nothing new. I think it is just taking more center stages. Learner at the center of learning. And why do I reiterate this is because what you're hearing more and more is design for the learner, or learner-centric, or personalized learning, and so on and so forth. Now, why this is important is also, when we are talking about learning now, there is a consensus that hands-on learning, applied learning, stimulated environment where you can, really do experiments on what you are learning. So they connect the real-world context of workplace and so on is becoming more important. And here, I think what has emerged probably, and this is something that I would say from our example also, and I'm probably a lot of you in the corporate sector who say, we are all very, we have a strong belief around how employees can play a significant role in mentoring and coaching our communities. Now, where this connect happens is that, and we are able to do this at a fairly big scale in terms of deploying a lot of our employees to mentor and coach young students. Two things, because there is a shift in the learner's mindset where learners and educators are thinking, look, it's not just the curriculum and the coursework, it is also that connect to somebody who's already there, real life, experiencing those jobs and roles. That interaction can add value to a learner, and that interaction can take the learner to the next level. So that thinking is emerging as a strong thinking in the ecosystem. And the second part is, the learner no more thinks that I have finished my 20 hours of curriculum, I'm done. The learner is believing that, look, over and above, can I get some interaction with somebody in the market who can get me some more information, some real life experience and so on. And I can do that in virtual also, because COVID has taught me that I can actually learn virtually too. So this shift in mindset that I can learn from somebody beyond my immediate teacher, and I can do so virtually, in turn combines this whole experience and say, look, focus on the learner is important, the conversion of the learner to something more, productive learning, better learning outcome, conversion to better jobs and so on and so forth, is probably going to be the center of the conversation.
Very interesting, very interesting. So you're essentially saying that phygital is here to stay. Technology is center stage. Keep the learner in the middle and keep the whole discussion around the learner, and ultimately it has to become a sustainable model in itself. I'm actually going to take this question to Abhishek slightly differently, right? I mean, with Pratyush we talked about scale and how technology enables scale, and we had Rumi talk about skill and how Phygital is a model that will still enable skill, right? But I know you actually have you are passionate about quality in education. I mean, you've been impacting positively more than 100,000 children, if I remember reading your profile right. What, in your view, is the factors that one should keep in mind as we scale up to 2047 in ensuring that there is quality even as we scale? So we keep the other angle of not just quantity but also quality.
Good evening, all of you. Good evening, all of you. First of all, thank you, eVidyaloka team, for inviting me. I still remember 2021 when we had the last in-person event, and I was sitting on the same chair. I'm the one end of the chair panel, and Ravi was the moderator. The only thing I changed the last 2 years that my two co-panelists have changed. The rest of the corners have remained the same. So that's a vivid memory of of the last event. And see, post-COVID, and of course, COVID by itself is the biggest learning anybody can have in lifetime, right? In a personal level, whatever projects and interventions we are doing, I think learning was enormous. Uh, what I did personally, I visited 15 state government schools in the last 1.5 years, where we have projects. Sometimes even if I go for my vacation, I try to visit a school. So try to understand how things are changing, what's happening, and I spend nearly 75 to 80 days in a year going to a government school. In fact, today also I spent 2-3 hours before coming to this event. That really makes us more understanding what's happening on the ground. And I think one of the things which probably you missed to introduce me, that I am the mixture of both, because I grew up in a semi-urban, locality.
Sorry, I have to intervene here. No, it's more than that. Abhishek comes from the famous town that we actually talked about a little while ago, where Rohit hails from. He is from Giridih.
No, I think I'm from Patna, not Giridih.
Patna, Bihar. You were actually explaining Jharkhand and Bihar. I was on the table with him, and he was very proud when Rohit came on stage. So I took a little liberty there.
First while Bihar, Giridih used to be. But I didn't grow in the city per se, like I was like 20 kilometers away. It was a very kind of a rural background. And my mom used to be a government school teacher. I have never shared this story before much, although some people know that my mom was a government school teacher. But when we're discussing about quality education, I think the role of a teacher and a principal, as Ravi was mentioning, is enormous. When I was growing as a child and also come back at 4 o'clock, my mom used to not be there because she'll be coming back from school after 5. And most of the time I used to eat my lunch and have it my food. And she used to literally walk almost 3 to 4 months in a year in a flooded water, which was up to her knees. Because the villages, when they flood, there's no way to take out the water. And she will walk inside that. You can imagine being a lady walking in a flooded water, which is like for 3 kilometers. And then she will go to the school and come back. Then she will go for election duties. And how Bihar was famous or infamous 10, 15 years, 20 years back when it comes to elections. Then she will go for population census. So many things, right? We will not see mom suddenly, she'll go for some teacher training, and I will ask her what was the training about. She's like, I don't know. Right? Some training somebody has put and she has to go. Right? And my dad used to work literally on a weekend to finish her work, because there's a lot of paperwork she has to do, which she was not able to do it. So we all used to do. I think she'll bring papers and we always start putting census data for her so that she can submit. So this is how I have seen. Now this was just you learn so many things. You never think that this is going to be used at some point of time in your life. Because I started my career with marketing with IBM. I never thought that this will be my career. But I still remember in 2014, 15, I met Venkat in my office. And Venkat has some time that time. Nowadays he doesn't meet me at all. Except that the last Shirdi trip which we did together. That was a memorable trip we had. But I and Venkat was kind of, incubating this whole idea of a digital education at a very same time. Probably he was advanced than me because he's already. And I think one thing I found about eVidyaloka was that it's the equity you guys have brought, right? I mean, look at the board members. I think you are such a strong board member. Even a private place, a profit company will envy you guys, right? I mean, the kind of people and the brand you bring to. And as you know that the Bombay Stock Exchange is going to have a social, stock exchange very soon. And I think you guys will be doing fantastic there. Probably will be listed very high there. So, coming to that, I think, the biggest thing which I have learned over the last 5 years, and I'm not preaching, I'm just telling you what I learned from the ground. The first thing is that when we look at school or a teacher or a principal, we think we are a giver. We give something, we have money, and etc., etc. They also very happily welcome you. Oh, aa gaya ek bakda, paisa dega, chala jayega, right? They also know that you have a fat purse, you come, give the money, and they will go next year, they will disappear. After ribbon cutting, nobody goes. And I've seen several projects in Bangalore, nobody visited or saw what happened after ribbon cutting. They also understand and they treat you like that. And that's where the equity between you and the school gets started. So we have understood this idea very beginning that until unless your projects are build, operate, transfer, this is nothing new for IT guys. This is how the IT industry evolved, right? And the first job at IBM, we were taught about how the back offices are coming to India. So exactly the same model be applied. How do you build your CapEx and OpEx? I'm talking all this business language, but it's quite useful for our project. And that's what really helped us to bring the change over a period, right? I was hearing the examples what you guys presented. We had a state topper of Karnataka in 2021, one of the beneficiaries, who scored 98.5%, right? Mahesh. And so many Maheshes are there, right? Not because of just our intervention, because of their own determination and studies. We are just one of the fly-by helpers to them. So the treating school and principal and teachers not the way you want, the way they want you to come there. That's the first fundamental change, and build, operate, transfer model. What I mean is that don't just build and say, okay, today is a science lab or a computer lab, and leave it to the principal. The principal is struggling to take classes of science and maths where he doesn't have a teacher. Right? And you build another infrastructure and say, oh, ye bhi kar lo, wo bhi kar lo. And they're like, how will we do? Or how she will do? So first understand that model. Operate till the time it can be transferred to the school to operate, right? That's a funda. Second, tell me all of us have appraisals, right? And this is appraisal cycle, by the way, for many companies, right? We are all inspiring, a hike milega, we'll get promoted and all those things. What are for teachers? My mom was a graduate teacher. She retired as a graduate teacher. I'm just trying to share my personal story. There's no actually inspiration, aspiration for them, right? They have a lot of awards, recognitions, appreciation. We all think, everybody thinks that they're paid a government staff, they're getting a good salary, but nobody actually cares that what is appreciation. In our IT, we talk about instant gratification, right? Moment I'm talking here, I think my team is taking pictures, they'll be on Twitter in half a minute, right? But where is the gratification for those teachers? How many of us actually do? I would like to see in Rubaru, like you bring some teachers also next time. So that's the fundamental point of getting principal and teachers as your first big stakeholder. So I was doing a project with eVidyaloka in Jaipur, very recently we started. It took me 6 months to break the ice with the principal. I had to finally go there, meet him. My team went a couple of times. It was very hard. But fortunately now it's working and both of us teams are collaborating very well. The third aspect is that, I don't know how many of you got a chance to go through the Usher reports, which has just recently came. The good news is that girls are getting enrolled more. The children are getting enrolled more in the government school. That's a great news. But not so good news is that the maths and English, there's a decline of 2 to 3 points on the report, right? That's where I think I saw there is a huge focus of our projects has to be on maths and English. And that's what we're also trying with eVidyaloka and other partners we work with, right? The other important part is that, which is volunteering, which you all know, I don't want to talk about. But do we get these children? I think I saw some very nice pictures of taking their first flight, right? Can we bring them to our offices, right? I mean, we are doing it, not that can we do it, but getting them to the next science museum, whatever else available in those cities. If there's a company, get them there. They'll able to meet those some employees who have studied in the government school, and they'll talk about their story, how difficulty it was, and all those things, right? And I can tell you the inspiration and aspirations, what those government school employees when they meet in our office, is amazing, right? I mean, my CEO is also from a government school, and I mean, he reached where he is today. But that's how this journey is, right? So if we can build some of these, right? Until unless we have some of these. And last point I leave, I know Ram, I've taken long. You can cut my second question because I've taken the long. There will be a one bright teacher in every school. That's where your 2 cents should go, right? If you find one bright teacher, we don't care. We don't want every teacher to be our brand ambassador. एक बंदा मिल जाए, एक टीचर ऐसा मिल जाए, and we invest everything on him. अच्छा, computer चाहिए, laptop चाहिए, whatever help, additional to bake you. And once you do that, I think your project will have a very highly multiplier effect on your impact. So these are a few things.
Very useful, Abhishek. So I think there's, I mean, if I was to just go back to, and by the way, we do have a volunteer recognition that's immediately after this event. So, going back to your comment about recognition. But I want to go back to 2 points you made, right? I mean, the common theme with what Ravi was explaining and what we're talking about is, this whole point of emphasis on the school principals and people who actually are on the ground driving the change, empowering them and recognizing them. And I think the other point you also made about, this whole part of connecting the children with people in the corporate world. For those of you in the audience, I mean, I just want to make this small comment. We actually have, this concept called as joy of connect. We encourage people in the walks of corporate lives. If you actually are keen, you don't have to be a volunteer who are teaching week after week. You could choose a day of your choice. You could reach out to us. We would be happy to have you connected with children from a school that you may actually be liking to speak with. It could be in the language that you speak as your mother tongue. You could connect with the children, and that in itself would be an inspiration. And incidentally, I mean, just to make this also evident to everyone, we actually teach, eVidyaloka teaches its children across these 12 states in the local language. While the content that we teach is science or maths, the content that is being delivered is in the local vernacular. I think that's important for everyone to also be knowing. Now, I want to conclude, and I know Akshay has been giving me some nasty looks there. I'm going to actually ask this one question to all 3 panelists. And I know this is something that is actually a question that is important to everybody here in the audience. If you had to just visualize 2047, the Amrit Kal, and let's assume that everything goes the way we would like it to go, and fast forward 2047, what's the picture you see from an inclusive education standpoint? What's the picture? What's that India that you would see? I'll start with you, Abhishek, and I'll come this way.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely we'll have at least 50% of the global CEOs from India.
50% of, someone can take notes, please. 50% of global CEOs from India. You're only allowed one line. So you will have to, maybe I'll give you another line, but we have to stop with that. Yes, that's one very interesting metric. Second would be?
And I think definitely out of those 50%, 10% will be from the government school, rural India.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a wonderful one. So 50% and a good chunk of them coming from government schools. Thank you, Abhishek. What would your crystal gaze give you as the picture, Rumi?
We can't use the same words.
You can't. Sorry, that's not allowed. Yeah.
So we'll just say ditto. Ditto. Done. Not also. That's very restrictive, huh? Okay. So again, trying to be as eloquent as possible, but I think the idea was that everybody gets an access to learning. So what I would say in a very advertorial first sentence is that lifelong learning for anyone and everyone, anywhere, everywhere.
We already got anywhere, anytime, so we got to add anyone and lifelong. I think that's very powerful statements, isn't it? Thank you, Rumi. That was wonderful. And last word to Pratyush.
The technology and Veda will come together and will take center stage in the globe with respect to education, not only in India, in globe. What the technology along with Vedas will take center stage not only in India but in globe.
Thank you, everyone. I think, yeah, I'm closing it. Yes. As you can see, there is some. I don't know what my disincentive is going to be at the end of the session, but I will have to bring this session to a close. Thank you so much for being patient listeners, and thank you so much, dear panelists. It was wonderful talking to you. Oh, that's a brilliant one. Abhishek is promising that 2047, you can hear me. 2047, we'll have the panel, and Abhishek and I will be in this panel. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Small off the record, and this is always a thing. I was listening to our guest upon who is giving the talk. One key point from me is today is, like he said, Vidya dadati binayam, but in Indian cities, English dadati arrogance. So that need to be broken.
Thank you.
To all our panelists for that stimulating and insightful discussion.